show in Kansas City. This is Any Given Sunday on KUAW Radio, where sports come alive. Join your hosts, the awesome voice, and Coach 24 as they dive into the latest sports news, analysis, and excitement. From the biggest games to the most thrilling moments, they've got it all covered. So sit back, relax, and get ready for an hour of unbeatable sports action. This is Any Given Sunday on KUAW Radio.
Hi there, and welcome to the Weekend Eve. In fact, this is the Super Bowl Weekend Eve. I am Brian Kress, the awesome voice. This is Any Given Sunday on KUAW. Across from me is my brother with another mother, Coach 24, Darwin Penny. How are you doing this evening, sir?
Doing great, awesome voice. Just glad to be here to do another show.
Absolutely. And running the show behind the scenes, Mr. DJ Scatter, Mr. George Walker. How are you doing this evening, Mr. Walker?
Hey, everything is going real fine, and I'm glad to be here.
Absolutely. So tonight we have two awesome guests. We have David Gershon and Willie Akins on the show. And we're going to talk a little bit baseball. I know that the Super Bowl is up and Kansas City has history going, but we're going to change it a little bit because next week, Coach 24 is going to be out on the scenes with baseball. So we're going to talk a little bit of baseball. So I just like for you guys, starting with David, to start how you got started in playing baseball.
Well, I grew up in the inner city part of Kansas City, about 43rd and Prospect for 19 years. So we only had the 3-2 league, which was for young kids, and the interscholastic league did not have baseball at that time. So I started playing when I was 8 years old and moved up in the ranks in 3-2. Got into the senior 3-2 baseball. Eventually, I think Frank White had a league in there as well. And when I was a junior, I got to play in high school. I got to play for the Van Johnson League guys potato chips, and that just to make the team was something back in the day. And from there, I got an offer to walk on at MU by Hy Simmons, and I went to my parents and asked them about going there, and they said, we can't afford to go to MU. And so I heard about a scholarship from Les Milgrams at the Milgrams Food Stores. I went and interviewed with him, and he gave me $2,500 to go to MU. And so I did go to MU. I walked on, and I lettered my freshman year. But the school was just too big for me. I didn't feel comfortable there. So I called Fred Fluke up at William Jewell, where I was supposed to go to school. And I asked Fred if I could still come up there. He said, super, yeah, we'd love to have you. So that was the best choice I ever made in my career, because in 1968 I was on the pitching staff where we won the NAIA championship in 1968 against Georgia Southern up in St. Joe. From that, I started promoting myself to try to get signed, and unfortunately, not too many people were looking for a short 5'6" pitcher. But I did well in college, and I got the opportunity as signing a free agency with the Oakland A's and Phil Seege, who was the general manager back in the day. And my contract was for Burlington, Iowa. So I went to spring training in 1969 and didn't make it out of spring training. So I came back to Kansas City and couldn't go to William Jewell again, because back in the day, if you got paid, you could not play you couldn't play at the university. Of course, that's changed today. And so I did finish up with get my degree at UMKC. Started coaching for Milgrams in the Van Johnson League in 71, 72, 73 with Don Motley, who many of the listening audience should know who he was.
Yeah.
And so what I've been doing for the last 24 years, I've had a team in the Van Johnson League, North Kansas City Giants, and that's kept me in the game. I'm around the young men, these young athletes, with the dreams that I had. It's hard to make it today, but they never give up the dream, they never give up the want. and so I really enjoy it. And of course, this next man next to me, he's got the real story, and I'd like the listening audience to hear what he has to say, how he got started in this game.
Well, absolutely. Now, you're from Seneca, South Carolina, so you're from the South. How did you get started in baseball?
You know, most people have never heard of Seneca before. So it's a college, Clemson College, in the ACC. It's about 4 miles from Seneca. That's where I'm from. I've been here in Kansas City since 1980. You know, back when I was born in '54, so in the 60s and 70s, when I was growing up, we had a TV. It was black and white. We didn't have any running water in our house. The bathroom was an outhouse. So for me, in my extra time, I played sports. I played football, basketball, and baseball. And I ended up getting a football scholarship to college. And since baseball was my favorite sport, the offensive coordinator of the football team, he was the baseball coach. So I was talking to him one day, and I told him I want to be a baseball player too. He said, "Willie, well, I already know about you. You're going to be on the baseball team." So make a long story short somewhat, we was playing against Morgan State in Baltimore, Maryland. I hit 2 home runs. After the game, a little short, chunky guy walked up to me. Walter Youts, he was the scout for the Baltimore Orioles, and he invited me to go up to Baltimore and play in the amateur league. And he started naming off players that had played in that league before: Reggie Jackson, Al Kaline, Ron Strabota. I thought about it. He said, "Willie, if you come, I'll find you a place to stay and I'll find you a job." And I had a 1961 Chevy. I got in that Chevy and I drove 13 hours to Baltimore, Maryland. And when I got there, Walter had me a room staying with a school teacher. And I was working as a laborer at a mall. They was building a J.C. Penney's. And back in 1974, you know, colleges was trying to add programs for females, Title IX. And the MEAC, you know, it was they didn't have a whole lot of financial aid or money or anything like that. So they got together and voted on the sport to drop if they couldn't add programs for females and keep all of the other programs. And they voted baseball. So while I was playing up in Baltimore, Maryland, I was featured as the next Reggie Jackson in Sports Illustrated. And one day I heard that my college had dropped the baseball team. You know, it's really weird because if I'm not in Baltimore, Maryland, and if I'm not in this situation right, I might not would have never became a baseball player. So I go to Walter. He was a scout for the Orioles. I used to work 8 hours a day, get in my car, change clothes, and go play baseball. And at times, Walter would take me over to a Memorial Stadium, and I would catch BP for the Baltimore Orioles.
Oh, wow.
So I got a chance to meet Jim Palmer,
Yeah.
Elrod Henry, Boot Powell, Brooks Robinson, Frank Robinson, you know, all those superstars.
Oh, absolutely.
And they used to let me get in the batting cage afterwards and take some swings. And I came like 2 rows from hitting one out of Memorial Stadium. And afterwards, the players walked up to me and said, "Willie, that's only been done one time before."
Wow.
Frank Robinson did it. But anyway, I go to Walter and I tell him what's going on, my situation. And I said, "Walter, I'm probably going to go back and transfer because I don't want to be just a football player." He said, "Willie, why don't you do this? Go back and talk to your football coaches and ask them if you can go your first semester of your sophomore year. And after your first semester, I want you to quit. Just drop out." Back then, they had a draft in January and they had a draft in June, 2 drafts. So that's what I did. I talked to my football coach, and he said, "Okay, go ahead." And after the first semester of my sophomore year, I just quit. So January 5th, 1975, I'm sitting at home watching the baseball draft. And the San Diego Padres had the first pick, and they picked my teammate, Gene Richards. And
Oh, yes, I know Gene Richards.
California Angels had the second pick, and they picked me. And I'm like, man, I thought Walter was going to draft me. So about 15 minutes later, I get a telephone call, and it's from Walter. He said, "Willie, I got you. I said, Walter, I thought you worked for the Orioles. He said, I quit the Orioles 2 weeks ago and went to the Angels.
Oh, wow.
He said, I'll be down in a couple of days to sign you. And he came down and he gave me a signing bonus of $14,000. Now, I'm the second player in the country. Today, the second player in the country get millions and millions of dollars.
Yes.
I got $14,000. Absolutely. I got $14,500. And that was the first time in the history of draft teammates from the same school had gone 1 and 2.
Now, what college was this?
South Carolina State.
Oh, okay.
A lot of people get South Carolina State mixed up with the Gamecocks.
Right.
South Carolina State are the Bulldogs. And historical black college. And that $14,000 as a signing bonus helped me get my family out of poverty. So it was a blessing in disguise for me.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That is amazing. I love stories like that. So, after you got drafted, so then what had happened?
Well, the California Angels, they sent me a letter. They said, we want you to report to spring training at 220 pounds. I was a football player. I was 252 pounds.
Oh.
Now, this was in January, right? So I got 2 months to lose 30 pounds. So I report to spring training in March at 252 pounds.
Oh, no.
So I get to spring training, and the Angels assigned a coach to me. His name was Moose Stubens. And Moose made a bet with the other coaches that at the end of spring training, I would be down to 220 pounds. I used to be the first one at the ballpark, out running foul line to foul lines. When I would play, come out of the game early, run foul line to foul lines. And after the games, I would stay, run foul line to foul lines. But the most important thing I did is I changed my diet. So make a long story short, at the end of spring training, I weighed 219 pounds.
Nice.
Later on during spring training, I heard I almost got released. And if I had not lost that weight, who's to say, if I would have ever been on. But because I went to spring training and everything, I missed Rookie League. I started off in A-ball, Quad City, Iowa. And we have a high A team playing there today. And that's the same ballpark that I played in 1975.
Oh, wow. That's awesome.
Yeah.
So, actually, the stadiums in the minor leagues are still around, where in comparison,
Yeah.
Major League Baseball's, they tear down the stadiums and build brand new.
There's quite a few new minor league parks because of the collective bargaining agreement. They had to upgrade. Quad Cities has made a tremendous amount of upgrades, so it's not quite the same as
Yeah.
it was.
It's in the same spot.
But it's an old park though.
Yeah.
You still have, there are some old parks that's still around, but man, they are going by fast. Because now an old park would be a park that was built in the 80s.
Right. Absolutely.
You know?
So the Burlington, Iowa park that I was supposed to end up, which was the Burlington Bees of
Right.
Oakland back then, is that still in existence? Is it still like it was back in the day?
I don't think so, because I don't think they're even in the Midwest League anymore.
No, I don't think they are.
Burlington is not in the Midwest League anymore. So my guess is that the park is probably still in existence. Probably some independent league team is playing there, and that's where I see a lot of the older parks today are in independent leagues. Because I do get out and scout those leagues, but so that's where a lot of those old parks. But you can't, because of collective bargaining and what's expected. You can't. These kids can't play in what I played in the 80s, and certainly not what Willie played in the 70s.
Yeah.
And so, but I've seen like even Auburn, New York. When I played in the New York Penn League, it was a dive. Well, 10 years later, I was coaching in the league, and that was my home park. It was the same spot, but a whole brand new stadium.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing. So, with that,
One thing that hasn't changed in Quad City, Iowa is the Mississippi River behind the ballpark.
Yes.
I used to hit him in that river,
oh, kind of
and-
like
and
Barry
it's still-
Bonds in San Francisco.
and it's still there. Yeah,
So, you put a few of them out there, huh?
absolutely.
So, you ended up making the team for the Angels in '77.
Well, I didn't exactly make the team in '77. I started '77 in El Paso, Texas.
Right.
No, '76. Quad City, 1975, El Paso, Texas, 1976. I hit 30 home runs. I drove in 118 runs. I hit 317. 78, I went to Salt Lake City, Utah.
So you were in the minor leagues that whole year.
Well, I started 75, 77, I was in Utah.
Right.
And I started the season off hot. And the Angels called me up after 2 months. And I was up for about 2 months. They called me up and they put me on the bench. I wasn't playing. And that's one of the worst things that you can do for a young baseball player.
Now, is it different back then than it is like today? So let's just say a Bobby Witt Jr. is sitting on the bench, not playing. Would it hurt him more today than it would you back in the 70s?
Well, it's going to hurt any player.
Okay.
I mean, back then and now.
Right.
Minor league baseball, you used to play every day. So you get into a routine of doing certain things. And then all of a sudden you come to the big leagues and you're facing big league pitching and stuff like that. And you see you sitting on the bench and you pinch hitting, and that's tough to do.
So you played in 79, and that was the year that the Angels did make the playoffs. Now, were you on the playoff team?
I was on the playoff team 1979. I think I hit 21 home runs and drove in 88 runs. I hit 277, I think I did. But September 18th, we were playing here in Kansas City. I hit a double down the right field line, slid into second base, and I tore up my knee.
Oh.
I came up, pop-up sliding now. I couldn't put any pressure on my left knee, and I ended up having surgery. We beat the Kansas City Royals out for the divisional title.
Right.
By 3 games. And we played the Baltimore Orioles in the American League Championship Series, and they beat us. And a lot of people have said if I hadn't got hurt, we would have beat them and went to the World Series.
Yeah, you guys did have a pretty good team.
Absolutely.
So, and that was the only mark with the Royals, because the Royals had been winning every division every year. The Western Division for 76, 77, 78, and then 79, you guys had it. And then 80, you come to Kansas City. How did that come about?
I got traded during the off season while I was rehabbing in Anaheim, California. I got a telephone call, and it was John Sherhouse, and he told me that they had traded for me, and that I was going to be the Kansas City Royals first baseman. I kind of expected, because we had Rod Carew, 7-time American League batting chip. 1978, I had an outstanding year in Salt Lake City. I hit 326, 29 home runs, and I drove in 110 runs. Rod Carew became a free agent, and the Angels signed him to a 4-year contract. And as a first baseman, he played all the years in Minnesota. He played second base.
Right.
Giving you a forward flow into everything new and fresh in the world of cool and contemporary jazz. It is Cool Jazz Weekly, everything fresh in the world of cool and contemporary jazz with just a dash of the retro. It's the name of our first song right now, Forward Flow from Bob Cope. Welcome to Cool Jazz Weekly.
Right.
It's going to be the DH.
Right.
And Rod Carew is going to be the first baseman. And I'm like, where did I fit in at? After the year I just had. So unexpectedly, I made the team out of spring training. So for the first month of the baseball season, I'm sitting on the bench.
Oh, wow.
So then at the plate, ground ball hit the third base, bad throw, take Rod off back at first base, and he tagged the run. After the play was over, he came in and sat beside me. He said, "Willie, I think I hurt my hand." Next day he comes to the ballpark. He got a cast on his hand. Broke his hand. Jeff Goldberg, the manager, called me inside of his office. He said, "Willie, I know you haven't been playing, but now you're going to get your chance. Are you ready to go?" I said, "Yes, Skip, I'm ready to go." Rod Carew was out for 2 months. And I told her, that's how I established myself as a major league baseball player. When I got the opportunity, I took advantage of it. So when Rod came back, Don Baylor had a broke shoulder. So he was the DH. So I was playing so well, Jeff Fregosi talked to Baylor and said, "Look, I'm going to push you in right field, and you just lob the ball in to the second baseman. He put me in as a designated hitter. I was playing so well, he just couldn't change the line.
Yeah, absolutely. So did you finish the season playing, or did Don and Rod Carew get back in there?
Well, in 1979, when Rod came back, I became the DH. Baylor was in right field. And then, remember, September 18th, I slid in second base.
Right.
And I tore my knee.
There
So
you go.
I was out for the rest of the year. Then during the offseason, I got traded to the Kansas City Royals. I mean, they had Rod Carew at first base. They had Don Baylor as DH. Those are the positions that I played. So I was expendable. And Sherhost told me, you are our first baseman. And I was disappointed because I loved Anaheim, California. But I also wanted to play every day.
Right.
And I go to Kansas City, I'm about 85%, 1980. They got artificial turf. And I struggled the whole first half. I mean, I come to the ballpark literally every day. The fans here in Kansas City, they booed me. And, it was disappointing. Jim Fry was the manager. But, I give him credit because Jim Fry, he never brought me in his office and said, Willie, if you don't start hitting, I'm going to set you on the bench. He had confidence in me. And remember in 1974 when I was in Baltimore, Maryland, I met Jim Fry. He was the coach. He was one of the coaches for Earl Weaver, Baltimore Orioles. So I didn't know him, but I knew of him. And he had confidence in me. And then the second half of the season, I tore it up. I ended up hitting 20 home runs, drove in 98 runs, and I hit 280, I think.
288, exactly.
Who did you replace at first base? I can't remember for the Royals.
John Mayberry was there for a while. I'm not sure if he was there in 78 or 79, but I know that he was there for the middle, or at least the playoff runs that they had in 76, 77.
Yeah, I think his last year in Kansas City was 1978.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they had somebody playing.
Yeah, he went Pete LaCotte.
Oh, there you
there
go,
you
Pete.
Yeah. Pete Marshall's son.
Yeah, LaCotte was the first baseman.
Yeah, he got all the playing time in '79.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Right.
Wow.
So then you're playing cleanup. You're the 4 guy batting behind George Brett. How was that?
Well, that was the year George hit 390.
Mm-hmm.
That was the year that we overcame the Yankees. They beat us in 76, 77, 78.
Oh, you don't have to tell me about it.
Yeah,
I have
well-
I have nightmares of that.
1980, we swept them.
Yep.
And before the playoffs against the Yankees, they started Tommy Johns, Ron Guidry, and Rudy May,
All left-handed.
all left-handers. And that was talking in Kansas City about, I had a terrible average against left-handers. And that was talking in Kansas City before the playoff if Jim Fry was going to start me at first base against those left-handers. And Fry said, how can I not start a guy that drove in 98 runs during the regular season? So I got 3 hits off of Tommy Johns. I hit a 2-run single off of Ron Guidry to beat him.
Mm-hmm.
I got the lowest batting average ever against Guidry. I'm pretty sure I'm not the only one. Cause
He was a pretty doggone good pitcher.
Yeah.
I still remember him at, I think, 77 or 76, that he was 25-3. I think that was the last time somebody won 25 games until Bob Welch in the 80s or 90. So,
he was tough.
yeah.
Absolutely.
Louisiana Lightning.
That's what they call him.
So
A
then
little
you-
small guy.
So, you said you struggled on AstroTurf. Tell me the difference when you were playing between Anaheim, that was grass, and at the time Royal Stadium, that was artificial turf.
I don't think I struggled because of the turf.
No,
I struggled because I had just come off for surgery.
right, but saying
And I
that-
wasn't healed yet.
No, I was just saying the difference of playing
Yeah.
on
Well,
grass and turf.
As a hitter, playing on turf is a lot better because you hit the so-so ground balls and they shoot through the infield.
Right.
The only thing, it would get really hot. You could see the heat coming off the turf. And the pattern on the turf, it wasn't thick at all. You know, it was like you was walking on concrete, cement. That was the difference. I mean, anytime you can play on grass, it's going to be a lot easier on your body, your joints and stuff like that. But that's what we had to play on.
Yeah.
But as a hitter, you loved it. At least I did, and I know George did too. But that was the year he hit a 390.
Yeah, and I've heard stories that he gives you credit for him batting 390 too.
Well, a hitter don't hit 390 swinging the pitches out the strike zone.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the best hitter in the world, if he's swinging the balls, he's not going to hit.
Right.
So George got good pitches to hit. Not trying to brag or anything like that. And there were times that they intentionally walked George, and I heard him. So it got around the league, you know, teams, they stopped doing that.
Yeah. So when that happens, when they intentionally walk George to get to you, what was your mindset?
I loved it
So
because I was a RBI guy.
right.
So I loved coming to the plate, hitting with people on base. So each time they walked George, that meant somebody was on base in scoring position. They didn't walk him, bases empty.
Right. Right.
When they walked George, it's because somebody else was out in scoring position. They gave me a chance to drive the runs in.
Yeah.
That was a pretty potent lineup when you go back and look at it. You guys had a table setter like a Willie Wilson, and then obviously you and George, and then who I feel is one of the most underrated roles sometimes is Hal McCray and his ability to drive in runs behind a Willie, and then Porter was still good then, and Frank. Yeah, I mean that's a pretty solid. That's a solid lineup.
Absolutely,
that is a solid lineup. So somebody got to get a pitch to hit. You can't walk everybody.
No, you can't do it, man.
Yeah.
So then you go to the World Series and you're playing the Phillies, and I know the town. We were thinking that we were going to win because we beat the Yankees. We finally beat the Yankees. Philadelphia is going to be no issue. What happened?
Well, the first game, I think we had like a 4-0 lead going into the sixth inning. Had our best pitcher pitching, Dennis Leonard, and they came back and beat us. And the second game, not sure what that score was, but we was in it. We lost a few games like late in the game. Dan Quisenberry had been our closer the whole year, and he was outstanding. But we lost the first two in Philly. October 14th was my birthday, and that was the first game in Philadelphia World Series, and I hit 2 home runs. And we lost that game. Then we come back to Kansas City, and the third game, I think I drove in the winning run, and we won that game. In the fourth game, I hit 2 more home runs, and we won that game. I became the first player in World Series history to have multiple home games. I didn't know it at the time, but I hit 2 in game 1, I hit 2 in game 4.
There you go.
And they were talking about it after the game and everything. And we tied it up in the fifth game. We lost it at home. In the sixth game, we lost in Philadelphia.
Yeah.
But I will always believe our team was better. A lot of times, the best team don't win during a short series. It's the team that plays the best.
Yeah. So then next year you play, and you had actually a really good season, but it was strike shortened.
Yeah.
So how did that strike shortened season affect you guys?
I don't have a whole lot of memory about that, but it was forgot why we were striking and everything like that. But I think that was the year I should have made the All-Star team. Yeah, it was. I was leading first basemen in RBIs and home runs at the All-Star break, and Jim Fry ended up choosing Murphy as a reserve.
Murphy?
Eddie.
Oh, okay.
Murray.
Oh, Murray. Okay.
Murray.
Yeah.
I think Rockaroo, was voted in by the fans.
Yes.
Yeah.
At first base, and the reserve. My coach didn't choose me. He chose Eddie Murray. And of course, he knew Eddie because he had him in Baltimore, Maryland. But if you go by stats, I was having a better year than Jim or Eddie was. And at the All-Star break, you know, I've never heard or seen this before, but a manager that take a team to the World Series get fired halfway through the season.
It's because he didn't take you to the All-Star game.
And that's probably why. That'll teach him a lesson, huh?
You're probably right. But the Royals, they fired Jim Fryer and brought in Dick Hauser at the All-Star break.
Yeah. Because Hauser just got fired, I believe,
By
the
the
year
Yankees.
before by the Yankees.
Yep.
So, yeah. And then eventually led them to the World Series, but that was 4 years later. So, so you were only in the one World Series.
Absolutely.
So you ended up leaving Kansas City and going to Toronto. What happened there?
Well, and when I came to Kansas City, you know, I had my first taste of cocaine as a member of the California Angels. I was introduced to cocaine by a couple of my teammates, 1979. And when I came to Kansas City, it was some guys on the Kansas City Royals who liked to party. So I became a part of that group. And not only in Kansas City, but you had guys all over, baseball players all over the league that were snorting cocaine,
Right.
drinking and partying and stuff like that. We knew somebody on almost all the teams that they come into Kansas City, we had the drugs for them. We going into their town, with New York, Chicago, Oakland, wherever, they had it for us. But during the course of the season, an article came out in the Kansas City Star about some of the Kansas City Royal baseball players being investigated in a drug operation. And I had a couple of guys coming over to my house one day, and they knocked on my door and they said, "We're the FBI. Can we come in and talk to you?" And I had cocaine all over the table and everything, you know. So I had to clean that mess up and let them inside. And they asked me about this guy that we was hanging out with in Overland Park, Kansas. I told them I know him and stuff like that, but I didn't really think anything about it. And then during that season also, the FBI came into our clubhouse to talk about gambling and stuff that you were doing as baseball players that can get you into trouble. And during their stay in the clubhouse, you know, he kind of got off the subject and he mentioned one player name and he said, well, what if Willie Aikens, then he started naming the other guys that was going over to this guy's house that was getting high with us. And I'm like, man. So I walked up to one of the players and I said, did you realize what he just did? He named all of us that's going over to Mark's house. And he just said, well, you just paranoid. Then I went up to Hal McRae and I told Hal what was going on. He said, Willie, if you're doing anything you shouldn't be doing, you better stop doing it because they know what you are doing. And, you know, good advice. And I truly believe that the FBI came in our clubhouse to warn us, to let us know we know what you're doing. And if you don't stop what you're doing, we're going to get you. We didn't stop. We just kept going. So after the baseball season, you know, during the baseball season, I talked to my friend, and he was supposed to meet me after the game and bring me some dope. And when I get to the spot where we meet, his girlfriend was there. And she said, Willie, I said, where's Mark at? She said, Willie, they kicked his door in today, and they found 3 ounces of cocaine. And they didn't arrest him. They just said, we'll be in contact with you at a later date. So I was like, man, can you believe that? So after the baseball season, they indicted us. During a period of like 2 weeks, they put a wiretap on Mark's telephone, and they had 4 of us recorded on the wiretap asking to buy drugs. And that's what they indicted, attempting to procure cocaine. So we ended up pleading guilty to a misdemeanor. First time offenders, never been in jail before. But the judge made an example of us. He sentenced us to a year in prison, suspended 3 months. We ended up doing 81 days in a federal prison. Then Major League Baseball would come in and step in and suspended us for the whole year. We appealed it to an arbitrator. The arbitrator knocked it down to 45 days. So after we got sentenced to prison and after we got suspended by Major League Baseball, I ended up going to prison. The Kansas City Royals, they didn't want to have anything to do with me. First of all, I had a bad relationship with the manager, Dick Hauser. Being on drugs affects your mood, gives you a bad attitude. And you are not the same person, and I just handled myself under Dick Hauser. I mean, really, really bad. I disrespected him, came to the ballpark late. So that was another thing I had against him with the Kansas City Royals. And I hit over 300 that year. I drove in 80-something runs. I had 23 home runs. I had a pretty good year. But since I had a bad relationship with the manager, they traded me to the Blue Jays. And that's how I became a Blue Jay. And got a chance to meet Mr. Pat Gillick, who was the general manager for the Blue Jays at the time. He even came to the prison where I was at and visited me. And I never recovered. I missed all the spring training. I missed the first 45 days. So as a hitter, you get behind, especially I became a part-time player.
Yeah.
Cliff Johnson was the DH against left-handers. I became a DH against right-handers. I was never able to catch up, so I had a terrible year. Then I ended up going to Venezuela playing in Wonder League. I didn't do so great, and next year I got released in April, the first month of the baseball season. I never recovered.
So with that, well, first, you were playing for the Toronto in '85, and you were playing the Royals in the playoffs. How was that? How was you feeling playing against your former team that, you had a great relationship with?
Yeah. I never made it to the playoffs. '85, I got released out in April.
Oh, okay.
So I was playing down in Syracuse, AAA baseball.
Oh, so you never got to see the Royals?
Nope, never did. I never made it back to the majors again because the next year, nobody would. In '86, I couldn't find a job in the United States, so I ended up going to Mexico. And I went to Mexico and had one of the best years of anybody that had ever played in Mexico. I owned the batting average record. I hit .454.
Wow.
I hit 46 home runs, and I drove in 154 runs.
That still holds today, doesn't it, really?
Yeah.
That's what I thought. Yeah.
I was a Major League Baseball. I was 32 years old. I was a Major League Baseball player playing in AAA ball, and still couldn't find a job after the season. So I go to winter ball and play. They offer me some pretty good money. And while I'm playing in Mazatlan, a team from Japan sent a representative to sign me to a contract. They offered me $300,000. Now I'm making $4,000 a month in Mexico.
Right.
My last contract in the big league was $600,000. Now a team is offering me $300,000. And see, my team had gone over to Japan in 1981 after the World Series. We played 17 exhibition games. I hit 7 home runs in 17 games. So I knew I was going to a place, whereas I was going to hit 50 home runs. Pretty simple and easy. And my salary was going to skyrocket, jump up. This is why a lot of times when we make bad decisions, bad choices in our lives, it can come back years on down the line to haunt us. When it came time for me to get a working visa to play in Japan, I couldn't get one because I had that misdemeanor conviction on my record.
Oh,
and
wow.
the Japanese don't let people come in their country with a criminal record, which devastated me. Next year, I'll
And
go
what
back.
year was that? What year was that?
1986, the winter of 1986. So the winter of 1987, I go back to Mexico, Puebla, and I catch hepatitis.
Oh, wow.
So I'm not able to play. I go home and got a whole lot of time on my hands. So I just came to a conclusion. I can't play in the major leagues anymore. I can't go over to Japan and play. I had been clean and sober for like 3 years. I decided to have a drink. This is why, if alcohol is not your drug of choice, and you start back doing it, it's going to lead you back to your drug of choice. Or at least it led me back to my drug of choice, which was cocaine.
Yeah.
So after I started drinking, I started back using cocaine. And not only was I a snorter, I became a smoker. So for the next 4 years in Mexico, I played baseball, I smoked cocaine, and I chased the females. That's what I did.
And
Brian, and from the reason why I asked him about what year that was, because I think a good transition, if you let me, is to tell you how I met this guy. Because when he went to Mexico, and he said he was doing the drugs and everything else, in 1990-91, there was a gentleman out of Denver that started a senior professional league in Florida. And it was primarily made up of ex-major leaguers who had just gotten out of baseball that still wanted to play the game. And then on that, they would take 2 guys to fill the roster that had a minor league contract. Well, I had my factory here in Kansas City, and I was 42 years of age, and I was playing in the men's senior baseball league here, and I was doing pretty good for a 42-year-old. And I decided to go down and try out for that league and show them that, yes, I did have a contract for Burlington, Iowa. Well, I went down and tried out for the St. Petersburg Pelicans, and I didn't make it, but my name was on a list of potential pitchers to fill in when one of these ex-major leaguers would hurt their arm and they needed somebody to fill. So I went down and tried out for the Port St. Lucie Legends, which was managed by Bobby Bonds, right?
Yep.
Bobby Bonds.
wow.
And they called me up and said, hey, we want you to come down here. You have to come down on your own expense, and if you make it, we'll give you $2,500. So I'm pitching a simulated game with a guy batting who is trying to play for them too by the name of No Neck Williams. He was a catcher for the Baltimore Orioles.
Earl.
And here I
Earl
was.
Pearl.
Yeah. He was a short guy, but boy, he was stocky and had no neck. And unbeknownst to me, the catcher, the professional catcher, and who I was pitching to, was telling him when I was throwing a breaking pitch because he didn't care about me, the minor leaguer.
Right.
And he didn't hit him out, but he knew when a breaking pitch was coming, so he didn't make me look very good. So after that, I walked over to the general manager. I said, where's my contract? He says, oh, Bonds wants to see you come back and wants to look at your curveball again tomorrow. And I'm thinking, oh, he wants me to throw batting practice again tomorrow. So I go back to the hotel, and sure enough, there's, what's his name, the reliever for the Mets, the one that pitched a perfect game on LSD.
Doc Ellis?
Doc Ellis was the pitching coach of the St. Petersburg Pelicans, and he sees me in the lobby. He says, Gershon, he says, we just called your factory because we needed a relief pitcher, and they tell me you signed with these guys. I said, no, I didn't sign with these guys yet. So he says, hey, we'll give you $4,500. Come back, get your stuff out of the locker, come back on the bus with us to Tampa Bay. So here I am. I went from $2,500 that I didn't get to $4,500 that I was going to get, and that was a lot of money. I mean, I would have paid them $4,500 just to have the chance to play. So I go back to Tampa Bay, and in those 30 days, I pitched 3 1/3 innings. My ERA was 15.
Ooh.
And but I made $4,500 for pitching 3 1/3 innings until I got that famous note on the locker, come see the manager. And because the guy that I replaced, his name was Rachik, he played for the Philadelphia Phillies, a big left-hander. He was healthy again, and they didn't need my services. But, you know, I got the opportunity to play with some tremendous ball players. Milt Wilcox from the Detroit Tigers was our number 1 pitcher. But it was a great experience for me. And but going back to this, when I tried out for the Port St. Lucie Legends, this man next to me was sitting in the locker room, and I knew who he was. He had no idea who I was. But knowing me, I walked up to him, and we started talking, and he was very friendly, talking to this short little white guy. Pardon me, but I have to say it, but that's what I was, a short little pitcher. And Willie and I, after that, we didn't see each other till, which will go into the next story, but we didn't see each other for quite a few years, probably till the early 2000s. Or late 2000, middle 2000s, we reunited back in Kansas City. But to this day, Willie is my golfing buddy. We play golf in a men's league every week. We play golf another time during the week, and he's been a tremendous friend. I know his family well. He knows my wife, and I couldn't ask for a better friend here.
And I've been blessed that he almost hit me and my buddy with a golf ball on a drive because he crushed it so far. And I called him Mighty Mike until I realized who he was. But I have been blessed and fortunate that I get to golf with you guys too, because, it's not like, ooh, superstar, guy. He's just a person. And you're an amazing person.
Thank you.
I mean,
You are too.
I have, I've met Darwin, I've met you, I've met you guys, I've met Mr. Walker, and sometimes your road sometimes leads you off somewhere else and you wonder to know why, and then all of a sudden it just seems like it comes together. And so, I appreciate everything. I am blessed. I have health. I have a loving family. I've got friends that, believe in me and I believe in them and stuff. And it's just so amazing. And so with everything now, so talk about your story now, about where you're at now.
When we re-met.
Yeah.
I don't remember that.
Okay, we'll let David help.
That was with Chuck
Yeah.
Dobson, remember? Chuck Dobson and I came down to meet you.
Yeah, okay.
There you go.
Yeah. Well, without making it too long or whatever, I became a recluse in my home for 3 years. I retired in 91. Sat around for about 3 years, smoking dope and partying and stuff like that. And one day a female showed up at my house, and I ended up getting dope for her. She was an undercover officer. And they kicked my door in, arrested me. Said, Mr. Aiken, you sold drugs to an undercover officer. And I didn't realize who this person was until I saw her in court, and I couldn't believe it. So I hired a lawyer. He negotiated a deal for 9 years. They were going to drop the gun charge and give me 9 years, and I said no. I fired him and I hired a trial lawyer. Paid him $35,000, and I paid the trial lawyer $15,000. Went to trial and lost. The judge at my sentencing said, Mr. Akins, used to be a prominent ball player here in Kansas City. He said, look at you now. You trashed your life. And I had trashed my life. This judge gave me a sentence of 20 years and 8 months. And, I always felt that I was going to win my case on appeal. Because as a baseball player here in Kansas City, I used to get stopped by the police. They just slap me on the wrist. Slow it down, Willie. Go ahead. So I had that attitude of that thinking that I was going to win my case on appeal. So I go to prison, and after a couple of years, nothing has happened. I rededicated my life to Jesus Christ. I didn't rededicate my life to Jesus because I wanted to change my life. I rededicated my life trying to trick God, and they let me out so I could go back to the streets and do some more dope. So 2 or 3 years would pass, I lose an appeal. 2 or 3 years would pass, lose another appeal. And before I knew it, I had been sitting in prison for 10 years and had lost all of my appeals. Absolutely incredible. But during that period of time, my little girls were 5 and 6. when I came to prison. When I got out in 2008, they were like 19 and 20. But I became a better father in prison than I was on the streets. I started getting up in chapel, church, sharing my testimony, speaking and stuff like that. Used to read my Bible every day. My point is that I gained a spiritual life. And after being incarcerated for, 12 years, the Sentencing Commission changed the guidelines. I became eligible for a sentence reduction. 19,000 people became eligible for a sentence reduction. And after 14 years, I got my sentence reduced, and I walked out those prison doors. And, I'm able to deal with what happened with me today because I truly believe that going to prison saved my life. A lot of times God allows things to happen in our lives to get our attention. He allowed trials and tribulations to happen in our life. And the Kansas City Police Department, they were doing their job, but they meant it for evil. Mm-hmm. Whereas God, he meant it for good. They don't understand that there was a pawn in a chess game, that God was playing with them, and that they were his instruments to save my life. Now, of course, when I got to prison, it was up to me to make a change in my life, and I did. And after being incarcerated for 14 years, pretty incredible, I walked out those prison doors, and I came to a halfway house here in Kansas City. And, I had not been in contact with any of my old teammates those whole for 14 years. And, I didn't hold that against any of them because they didn't owe me nothing. Absolutely nothing. But while I'm at the halfway house, I get this letter, and it's from Hal McCray. And he said, "Willie, I heard that you need a job. And here's the number." Her name was Linda Taylor. She owned a construction company in Blue Springs, Missouri. He said, "I want you to call her up," and I've already talked to her. He became friends with her because Hal used to live in Blue Springs when he was here as a player. So they had known each other for 30 or 40 years. And I called up Linda, and she hired me as a laborer, making $25 an hour, which was a tremendous help. That's why, when you're in the family of baseball and you build a relationship, that kind of friendship and relationship, it just lasts a lifetime. Then I got in contact with my old friend George Brett, another one of my teammates. Mm-hmm. Now these guys, this is 2008. I haven't even seen these guys since 1985, my last year in the big leagues, for 23 years. And George invited me to go over to his son, middle school, to speak to the kids about drugs and alcohol. And I did. I spoke for 45 minutes. And after I finished, George come up to me and he said, "Mick," that's my nickname. He said, "Mick, you spoke for 45 minutes and you didn't even stutter." I'm pretty sure there's a lot of people on this call or that's going to watch this podcast remember me as a baseball player, as a stutterer, that I had a tough time doing interviews. I couldn't talk, basically. And I didn't know how well I was going to do when I spoke to those kids. But George let me know how well I did. And my thing is this, that when God, he want to use us, he makes us whole. And he had made me whole. And the next thing George said to me, it really shocked me. He said, "Mick, you need to be back in baseball." And I'm like, man, where did that come from? He said, "I'm going to come by that halfway house and pick you up. And I'm going to take you over to Royal Stadium to a baseball game. And I'm going to introduce you to Dayton Moore, the general manager for the Kansas City Royals." And George did that. Now here's a person that don't owe me nothing, that haven't seen me since 1985, that he's going to try to get me on with a major organization like the Kansas City Royals. So he take me to the ballpark. I meet Dayton, tell him my situation. Dayton said, "Willie, I know your situation, and I can't make you any promises, but I'll keep you in mind." So we leave it at that. A couple of years pass. At the ball game, and I run into Dayton. He said, Willie, I want you to come up to my office after the game. I want to talk to you. So I go up to his office, and he got some of his front office staff up there. He said, we're thinking about hiring you as a coach, Willie. He said, if the Glass family approve it, we're going to hire you. And he said, I'll be in contact. So I just left, and with the thought of, I had this confidence, this boldness inside of me, especially after I got my sentence reduced, because when I got my sentence reduced, it took me back those 12 years. Why did I rededicate my life to Christ? Well, I did it so God would help me get my sentence reduced, and I walk out a free man. So the Bible says that when we walk in the ways of the Lord, he will bless our lives. God blesses our lives anyway when we don't walk in his ways because of the love that he has for us. But when I got my sentence reduced, it just put more confidence in my belief that God, he's going to help me out. And I get a telephone call from Dayton. He said, Willie, the Glad family approved it. Welcome back to the Kansas City Royals. And all I could do was just break down in tears because I knew it wasn't anything that I had done, that it was a blessing coming from my Heavenly Father, that he just put the Spirit inside of these other people and used them in order to bless my life.
And how many years now have you been with the Kansas City Royals?
This will be number 15. Yeah, I was on the field as a coach for 8 years, and for the past 5 years, I've been special assistant to baseball operation. Myself and Reggie Sanders, Mike Sweeney, Blaine Boyer, and our director, Matt Marosco. But, I wake up each day and I thank God for everything that he's allowed to happen in my life, because from what I've gone through and getting out and being hired by a major organization like that, it's truly a blessing.
And that is amazing. So how exactly did you guys meet back up?
Well, a good friend of mine, Chuck Dobson, who pitched for the Oakland A's, who in his retirement he was from Kansas City. Chuck and I were, again, friends for forever and played with each other in the Van Johnson League as well. And Chuck and I were talking, and he said, I hear that Willie's coming back. And he knew of the halfway house because Chuck himself was an alcoholic. But when he passed away, he had been dry for like 35 years, hadn't touched it. So I told Chuck about my relationship when I knew Willie, and so we both went down there together. Now, whether or not he really recognized me or remembered me, I really can't. I can't remember the story, but instantly, this big guy, a 6'3" guy next to me here, we just hit it off as friends. And as everybody here at this table can talk about, baseball, the friendships that you develop in sports and baseball especially, they remain with you. All of my friends today, not all of them, but a majority, are from baseball. Darwin, I'm sure you could say the same thing.
Absolutely, yeah. Those relationships go from Little League all the way through my minor league career, coaching, and even now today scouting.
Right.
These are lifelong friends. I mean, a lifelong friend is who introduced me to the Kansas City Royals, and Gene Watson, and he and I had been friends from the same hometown, and a conversation with him led to a conversation with Dayton Moore that led for an opportunity for me to come here to run the Urban Youth Academy for the first 5 years of my career with the Royals, before being in the scouting department the last 3.
Mm-hmm.
So, but definitely relationships in baseball.
Absolutely.
And, and God put us here today, right here, for a reason. I mean,
because we ran into each other at the Hall of Game.
well, we first started when you were when I had the show, The Sports Disciples, with Marvin Durant, and then it was that week, and then because I knew that J.R. Richard was going to be at the Hall of Game ceremonies, and I wanted to meet J.R. Richard. He was a phenomenal person. I just loved his game and was saddened, that he got a stroke and everything that happened to him. So I got to meet him, and so I brought a date, and we're trying to get in, and the woman is like going, "You can't come in. You can't do this. You can get a ticket across the street." And so I'm trying to talk with her, and then all of a sudden Darwin and his wife Maria were behind me, and I was like, "Hey, how's it going?" I'm still here in line. I don't know how I even stayed in line, and she didn't tell me to get out of there or whatever. But we were talking, and I was like, "We're trying to get tickets," and Maria goes, "Oh, we got tickets." So I ended up getting a couple of tickets. I gave it to her. She kind of looked at me dumbfounded a little bit, and that started our relationship. And so he even asked me, "What are you doing on Monday?" And I was like, "Well, I was off on Mondays because I deliver mail." And I said, "But I do a show." And he goes, "Would you like to golf in a tournament?" And I was like, "Oh, I can skip the show." and Marvin goes, "Yeah, just do that, and then you could talk about it later." And that started our relationship. And, we would do a show in the back of his truck. I'd have my cam,
Right.
And all that, and we would talk, sports and all that, and then we would play either a full round or a half round. It depend on his availability, and and that's it. And then this weekend, Maria's birthday is the 18th, and mine's the 9th, Super Bowl Sunday, which is Chiefs are giving me a birthday gift. But we're going to go out to dinner, the four of us. So
Wow.
Have fun.
An interesting, real quick story about Dayton Moore. Every year, the Van Johnson League, we have our banquet, and every year I've been inviting this man next to me, and Willie speaks to our young athletes. But unbeknownst to him this year, and unbeknownst to me, Dayton Moore was a guest as well at our banquet, and Dayton and Willie got to see each other, and I don't think that's happened for a few years, but Dayton told me privately, he said that what happened to Willie and him giving Willie that second chance was one of the biggest accomplishments that Dayton Moore has had in his life. And that's really touching from a general manager to say that about this man next to me. It says a lot about this man, because I've heard his testimonies. And what he has to say should be heard by all sorts of people. Every minor league camp in the United States from every team should have Willie come out there and give his testimony, because it can save, if it saves just one kid from the things that the decisions that Willie made that affected his life. If he can save those kids, his story needs to be told. And Willie does have I've got to mention your book, which I read,
Yes.
which is this one here, Safe at Home. It's a great book that it's the life of Willie that you can find on I think in Amazon. Can you buy it there?
You can get it from me, Willie Akins, willie.akins.com. My email address, akinwillie24@yahoo.com. That's my website.
There you go.
So
There you
you
go.
can get it from me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the
So
other-
actually, I went to Barnes and Noble and got this.
there you
This
go.
was the last one they had.
Yep.
And I was like,
I believe
that's
that.
mine.
Yeah.
And then if you really want to see the story of his life, there was a movie made 4 years ago?
About the book.
Yeah,
About the
because
book.
because
It's called The Royal.
Yeah.
And Willie, where can you find that on the
YouTube
internet?
movies, Amazon Prime
Yeah.
Video.
Yep.
It's a good movie. I've seen it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I need to see it.
It's a great story. Great story.
And I have a goal of reading this book from cover to cover. So
Well,
absolutely. So, and I know we're running past time, but this is one of these shows where it was well worth it and everything. And I appreciate you telling your story, and your guys' friendships, and the fact that we celebrated your birthday. We got to golf, so that's why I posted that one picture of us.
and the one thing that I have to rely on from him is his long ball, not the long ball from hitting home runs, but when he connects on a drive,
Oh my God!
it is just like his swinging baseball. And when he hits it, it can go 240, 250, 260. And my short game, I hope, can help us. And I'm just praying for his long game.
Absolutely. Man, he does. When he can, He tattoos one. He can tattoo it, and he can
For
drive
old timer.
with the best. Hey, no, it's not that. And in baseball, I was looking at your stats. He only struck out 444 times in the major league. He had almost 3,000 at bats. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Considering the fact that he was in the lineup for a few years, but he was in and out, part time, and still. You got guys this year that will strike out almost 400 times in a season, and yet, in his whole career, he only struck out 444 times. So that is amazing. So we are nearing the end of Any Given Sunday on KUAW. We're going to do, first, we got the Chiefs, so I have my jersey. I know you can't see it on my camera, but I'm wearing Mahomes, obviously. And so who do you guys have for the Super Bowl, and what is your score?
Well, the Eagles are a great team.
Yes.
They've got the weapons. They've got a quarterback, but the one ingredient, the three ingredients that they don't have a Patrick Mahomes. They don't have a Spags calling the defense, and they don't have an Andy Reid. Now, they do have a defensive coordinator, and they do have their head coach, but our guys are one notch above them. So I'm going to go back on the confidence that they have going into this game, how they're approaching the game, and I think it's going to be a very, very close game, and I think it's going to come down to. It's going to be the story. It's going to come down to whoever has the ball last. And if we have 13 seconds or less, I put my hands in Patrick Mahomes, and I think the destiny is that we do the three-peat, and I think we win by that 3 points or we win by a point. It doesn't matter to me. You win by 1 point.
Yep.
Willie.
Well, I'm pulling for the Chiefs. I truly believe that turnovers might determine who wins this football game because either team can win. I give the advantage Philadelphia, the running game. Barkley, he's an outstanding runner. Quarterbacks, almost even, basically.
Almost.
Yeah. Mahomes is a little bit better, I think. I'm not calling who's going to win the game because I have no idea because of any of those teams. But I will say this here, I'm pulling for the Kansas City Chiefs. And I think if the Kansas City Chiefs play the way they are capable of playing, they can win the game.
Yeah, there's no way you can pull for the Eagles with that toboggan you got on.
It's the Chiefs.
I know.
Yeah.
There's no way you can pull for the Eagles.
No.
You can't sit up here with a Chiefs thing on.
Yeah.
Hey, Eagles, I think they're going.
Yeah, Eagles, man, are my team.
I didn't say that, did I?
No, you did.
yeah.
No,
Like,
you
there's
did.
no way you can.
So, Darwin, who do you have?
So I think it's going to be a closely contested game. I'm going to go 30-27 Chiefs. As long as Saquon doesn't go over 150 yards, if he goes over 150 yards, that means they're going to control the clock. And I still think that's the only way that you beat the Chiefs is you got to control the clock.
Which takes the ball out of Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah.
Right. So, and I still think that's it. I couldn't agree with you more, David, as far as I think top to bottom, Philly actually has a better roster.
Yes,
they do.
Man for man, if you look at position groups, obviously I would say quarterback goes to the Chiefs, whereas running back goes to the Eagles. I think the offensive line is the Eagles. I think the defensive line is probably a push. The Eagles a little bit better in the middle, and Chiefs better on the edge. The secondary, I would probably give a little bit of an edge to the Eagles only because of safeties, not because of corners. And the linebackers are pretty close. But at the end of the day, there's a couple of places where, to David's point, I would trust Andy Reid anytime over Nick Sirianni and his emotions.
good point.
And in a big game like this, emotions play huge. But if it comes down to a kick, I'll take Butker. And they got a good kicker, but I'll take Butker. He's made too many big clutch kicks, and I think that's what it's going to come down to. But if Saquon is over 150, that's not good for the Chiefs. So when he's had his big games, and because he's so explosive that you hold him down the whole game, and then all of a sudden he busts an 80-yard run.
Yep.
Those are the things that I like that. But I've got the Chiefs 30-27.
Yeah.
And what about you,
Well,
Brian?
first of all, the Chiefs on defense has to be disciplined for 60 minutes, not 59 minutes and 30 seconds, not almost 60 minutes, for 60 minutes, because as he put it, Barkley can take off 80 yards at any time. First play of the game, last play of the game. Patrick Mahomes is 7 for 7. And since 2002, there's been 125 drives in the playoffs. Brady is 5 for 11. Drew Brees is 3 for 6. Patrick Mahomes is 7 for 7. He is undefeated when it comes to that. I will take that over Jalen Hurts any day of the week and twice on Sunday. It is going to be a close game. It's going to be a great game. It's going to be a one-score game. Chiefs could be down 10 points, and they can still come back because they've been down 10 points in all the other 4 Super Bowls he's been in.
Right.
So that doesn't matter. But as you said, Andy Reid, Spagnuolo, Mahomes,
Special team coach.
special teams coach.
Blocking kicks.
I can't think of his name right offhand, but yeah, the special teams coach. They are well coached, and you have to be well coached to win a game. Washington proved that they beat Detroit, but they didn't quite have the coaching to show Washington how to beat Philadelphia, and you saw the results. That won't happen with Andy Reid and them, and I say 34-31, the Chiefs over the Philadelphia Eagles, and they give me my birthday gift.
That's right. One other stat that came out interesting this morning, the lines of the defensive, and I think it was both lines, they average 26 pounds heavier than our linemen, and they average 1 inch taller than our linemen. So how do you beat these big behemoth offensive linemen? I think you beat them by speed, and I think that what'll happen is they'll hold up those big guys, but there'll be some stunts run that will provide a lane that they can go right after hurts the quarterback. Mm-hmm. And that's what I'm hoping, because if you're going to wear yourself out if you go directly at those big offensive linemen. We got to beat them by the speed of George Kalafidis and other people that we have on that defensive ends. That's my theory.
Yeah, absolutely. So we've got our scores in. Mr. Walker, what do you?
I'm with the Chiefs all the way.
There you go. All right, so we're 5 for 5.
We're 5 for 5.
So we're near the end. I just want to say that in the month of February, the Negro Leagues Baseball Museum is free entry to go into the museum, courtesy of the Kansas City Royals. They will pay everybody's admittance for anybody who shows up for the month of February. I went last year. I truly enjoyed it. I got to take my kids, and they enjoyed it, and I'm going to try to do it again this year. So definitely go to the museum. And with that, we are with the best and last segment of the show. Penny, for your thoughts.
Today we are the 6th day of February, which has also been recognized as Black History Month. And with us talking about Negro Leagues and the opportunity to go down and visit, I want to just share a little bit about April 15th, 1947, when Jackie Robinson integrated Major League Baseball. Most people would look at it and think, well, once he integrated, the floodgates opened and Negro League players had opportunities to go, but it still was very slow. Only 4 teams integrated within the first 2 years, from 1947 to 1949. The Dodgers, the Cleveland Indians, the St. Louis Browns were integral, and then the New York Giants. But today we want to remember the last team to integrate Major League Baseball, which was the Boston Red Sox, and a little known fact by a guy by the name of Elijah Pumpsy Green, 1959. So think about that, 12 years after Jackie, before Major League Baseball fully integrated all of its teams. And so today we salute Elijah Pumpsy Green for the Boston Red Sox finally breaking through in 1959.
That's awesome. And with that, with our guests, David Gershon and Willie Aikens.
Yeah, I just want to say that I'll be signing autographs Saturday, February 15th, down at the museum from 12 to 2. So if anybody want an autograph from Willie Aikens, come down to the museum February 15th from 12 to 2.
Absolutely. Definitely, and meet this man. This man is an awesome man. He's got some huge hands too. So, your hands remind me of my dad's. My dad had huge hands too, and they were strong as a ox. So, so with Willie Aikens, with David Gershon, my brother with another mother, Coach 24, Darwin Penny, and the man running the show, DJ Scatter, George Walker. I am Brian Kress, the Awesome Voice. Be awesome, not angry, and you guys have yourself a Super Bowl weekend.
Go Chiefs.
Go Chiefs.